Good afternoon, Ma'am Athal and classmates. I'm Rissa Mae P. And I'm assigned to discuss about rational unified process. So what is rational unified process? It is a software engineering process or the software development process from Rational, a division of IBM. It provides a disciplined approach to assigning tasks and responsibilities within a development organization. Its goals is to ensure the production of high-quality software that meets the needs of its end users within a predictable schedule and budget. The Rational Unified Process is a process product. It is developed and maintained by the Rational software and integrated with its suite of software development tools. The Rational Unified Process is also a process framework that can be adapted and extended to suit the needs of an adapting organization. How to use Rational Unified Process? The fundamental purpose of the Rational Unified Process is to provide a model for effectively implementing commercially proven approaches to development. Taking elements from other iterative software development models, the Rational Unified Process Framework was initially created by the Rational Software Corporation, which was bought out by IBM in 2003. Although this method is primarily used for big software development projects, many project managers assume that RUP is not the right solution for projects of limited scope, which don't require many resources. However, there are many examples of small projects that benefited greatly from incorporating RUP into their organization. For example, the Top University. It is an online learning management system, and their aim was to extend the face-to-face training and boost their online offerings to corporate and public customers and students. Although was a small project, the implementation of RUP yielded remarkable results. It helped the organization build a necessary framework in terms of organization of their use cases and gave guidance for the company to begin the construction stage, the third and the most important stage of Rational Unified Process. As you can see in the image, there are two dimensions. Firstly, there is the time dimension, represented by the horizontal axis. The time dimension is expressed in terms of the phases and cycles, iterations, and milestones. The vertical axis is the process dimension. This dimension represents the static aspect of the process, and it's described in terms of activities, artifacts, workers, and workflow. So first, let's discuss the time dimension. The time dimension means the dynamic organization from the process over time. The software's life cycle is itself divided further into cycles. Each cycle corresponds to, for example, a period in which a new generation of a product is being worked on. The Rational Unified Process divides development into the four consecutive phases. 1 is the inception phase, 2 elaboration phase, 3 construction phase, and 4 transition phase. Each phase is finalized with a milestone. A milestone is a point in time where decisions of critical importance must be made. In order to be able to make those decisions, the objectives must have been accomplished. For example, a milestone from the first two phases is the progress of the use case. A use case is a description of a system's behavior and describes who can do what using a system. This is an important component in the development of a software. As can also be seen in the RUP visualization, testing already starts in the first phase. Normally, a product will already have to be completed by then. That is because this involves prototypes and test models. So let's proceed to the four phases of the rational unified process. And the phase 1 is the inception. In this cycle, your team determines the structure and the basic idea of the project. Also, the team will decide if the project is worth pursuing at all based on the estimated cost, the necessary resources, and the goal they are trying to achieve with the project. Next is the phase 2, elaboration. The aim of this phase is to analyze the requirements and the architecture of the system, develop the project plan, and eliminate the highest risk elements of the project. It's undoubtedly the most critical of all stages as it signifies the transition from low risk to high risk. Also the point when your team has to make a decision whether to start a construction or the development and coding or not. Next is the phase 3, construction. At this stage, your team is finally ready to develop all components and features and integrate them into the product. It's a manufacturing process where your team focuses on managing resources in order to optimize costs, schedules, and the quality. Lastly, the phase 4, transition. The transition phase is the moment when the product is finally finished, released, and delivered to the customers. However, once the product is given to the user, there are a number of issues that can arise. This requires the team to handle all the bug fixes and correct problems, or to finish some features that were postponed. Let us go now with the second dimension, which is the process dimension. The various phases related to developing software systems are now clear. As in any other process, the RUP describes who does what, where, and when. The various phases already indicate the various activities involved in the development of a system. Here follows a more detailed explanation of the core activities. The number 1 is the corporate modeling or the business modeling. The goal of this discipline is to understand the business of the organization, the problem domain being addressed by the project, and to identify a viable solution to address the problem domain. Number 2, requirements. The goal of this discipline is to describe what the system should do and how it should function. Both of the user and the developer should agree on the requirements as described in the first phase in order to define the scope of the project. The number 3 is the analysis and design. The objective of analysis and design is to show how the system is realized in the implementation phase. It should meet all requirements and execute all its tasks as described in the use case. The number 4 is the implementation. The objective of implementation is to construct the full system. This is where components are tested and released. Also, to transform your model into executable code and to perform a basic level of testing, in particular unit testing. The number 5 is testing. The goal of this discipline is to perform an objective evaluation to ensure quality. This includes finding defects, validating that the system works as designed, and verifying that the requirements are met. Tests are carried out along 3 dimensions: the reliability, functionality, and the application management and system performance. Lastly is the application. It is the successfully releasing a software system and enabling the user to work with the new system. It includes many activities described in the transitional phase 4, including packaging, distribution, installation, help and assistance, beta test, data migration, acceptance. In addition, there are three supporting disciplines. It is the configuration and change management, project management, and environment. Here are some advantages of rational unified process. First, it allows you to deal with changing requirements regardless of whether they are coming from the customer or from the project itself. Second, it forces integration to happen throughout the software development, more specifically in this construction phase. Lastly, it emphasizes the need for accurate documentation. There are some disadvantages of rational unified process. First, it mostly relies on the ability of experts and professionals to assign the activities to individuals who should then produce pre-planned results in the form of artifacts. Lastly, the integration in development process can also have an adverse impact on some more fundamental activities during the stages of testing.